Hello and good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are. It's either morning or afternoon. I am excited to host today's webinar. What CBS and IBS mean for your SAP system. I think you all know there's a big change in the tax system in Brazil, and we want to tell you all about how that is impact the SAP systems. So my name is Bernd Bayer. I am your host for today's session. I'm joined by Andre and Alexander, who is joining here in a minute. And I would like to introduce our speakers first. I'm joined by both Alexander Höppel and his colleague Stefan Neder. Alexander got a little bit delayed. He's going to join any minute now. And if he can't make it on time, Stefan is going to take over his role. And again, my name is Bernd Bayer, and then I'm joined by Andre Franco. And maybe we do a quick round of introduction. Andre, you want to introduce yourself quick, just 1 or 2 sentences? You are on mute, Andre. Andre, you're on mute, always.
Sorry. So thank you, Barn. My name is Andre Franco. I've been working with SAP for 28 years, working with the Brazilian localization and localization around Latin America. And that's what we do at Tortevo. And I'll try to give you an idea on what's going on with the tax reform and the impacts in the SAP system in this session.
Great. And
Okay.
then Stefan, do you want to
Yes,
introduce yourself and Alex maybe at the same time?
yes, of course, I will. My name is Stefan Nader. I'm one of the co-founders of Ortevo and responsible mainly for our partnerships. That's why I'm excited, especially for this webinar today. And I will try to take over the role of Alex, who's our manager of business development. He's stuck in the train right now, as it happens to some people in Germany very often. So I will take over his part until he joins. And yeah, I'm very looking forward to this webinar today.
Great. And then finally, Bernd Bayer. I'm responsible for business development for C&T. I'm based in Atlanta, where we manage all our US and Middle America and South America business, and then everything South America we manage together with Ortevo. We have a lot of information, so I want to dive right in. We do start with a short introduction, which would be me. It's like, why are we together? What are we talking about? And who is C&T? And then either Stefan or Alex going to tell you all about who Ortevo is and why are we together. And the most important person today is Andre, because he knows all about the tax reform and how it would impact the SAP, which is why everybody is on the call today. So a quick introduction. There are 2 companies today representing the event, C&T, which is my employer. We are a system integrator, and Ortevo is a system integrator too. We have 2 different focuses for our companies. C&T is a full spectrum SAP system integrator. We have our headquarters in Vienna, Austria. We have 500 in-house SAP consultants, and we are focused on all of SAP S4HANA and all the SAP products. Headquarter in Europe, a lot of offices in Europe, and we are based here in the United States. What's important for you to understand that while we are only quotation mark 500 consultants, we are smaller than companies like Deloitte or Accenture, but we cover all of the SAP spectrum. That's why we work so well with Ortevo. So when we are looking at implementations, we do S4HANA implementation. We do this as greenfield, we do it as brownfield, we roll out specific modules, and then we have competencies across all the different SAP modules and SAP solutions. So anything from Sales Cloud with CX, anything order to cash, anything source to pay in terms of Ariba and the procurement, everything in regards to engineer to order. So if you do industrial manufacturing, we have a practice for that. Anything in terms of strategic planning with IBP or operational planning with production planning, detailed scheduling or MRP, the plant maintenance, the warehousing with WM and EWM, anything in regards to production planning and manufacturing execution, all SAP, and then the finance, the analytics, data warehouse cloud, business data cloud, a lot of products, recruit to retire with HXM, Concur, success factors, and finally the service cloud and the customer service module. And on the bottom right, you see some solutions which are going to be interesting in the future. I hope you look into it, which is Signavio, WalkMe, LeanIX, and Cloud ALM. So this is our portfolio. And then we have this really great relationship with Ortevo. So both Ortevo and CNT are headquartered in Europe, and we have our offices either in the United States for CNT, and then Ortevo has their offices in Brazil, Mexico, and other locations in South America. So we as CNT do the totality of SAP, but Ortevo is the specialist when it comes to Brazil. So we work great in this triangle between the United States, South America, and Europe, because sometimes decisions headquarters are in Europe, sometimes they're in South America, sometimes they're in the United States. So we are working together. We do the width of the SAP system, and then Ortevo does all the localization, which the tax reform is everything regarding localization. With that, I would like to hand over to either Alexander or Stefan, whoever is ready, and hear something of a quick introduction to Ortevo before we dive into the Brazil tax reform.
Yeah. So at this stage it would be me. Alex is attending, but still finding a spot. He will hand over or take over later. So I'm happy to do the quick introduction for Ortevo, and thank you, Bernd, for the kind words and the intro from your side. And you said a lot about Ortevo right now, but some stuff we can highlight on the global scale when it comes to SAP in Latin America, and then Andre will make a deep dive into everything around the tax reform. So I will start right away with our little presentation. So Ortevo is, like you said, a European SAP consultancy with the specialization in SAP when it comes to Latin America. And our intro to the complexity, and some of you, of course, who are attending out of Brazil know about it, but the tax system is very complex. And to highlight that, we always choose this picture. So here you see the lawyer Vinicius Leoncio from Brazil, and this is a picture of him sitting on his first published book. It's called Beloved Homeland, and he was very fed up with the complexity of the Brazilian tax system. So he said, "Okay, I'm going to print the whole tax system, the whole regulation out and publish it into a book." You can see him here sitting on that mentioned book. So it took him very long time to print it out. And in the end, it was a 7-ton book with more than 41,000 pages. So that gives you a little glimpse into how complex Brazilian tax law is. And I think this is a very, very good picture to get an introduction on that or into that complexity. So if we go further along, that always gets us to the why we do it, because it's complex and we want to help navigate multinational organizations and companies navigate that sometimes bumpy road to Latin America. We can smooth that out and help to maintain the integrity and the efficiency of the global templates, and help those companies localize the systems when it comes to Brazil or other Latin American countries. Sorry. So we always have the same complexity. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, depending on which country you are going to. With Brazil being the most complex country in that regard. So we have frequent changes, you have the language and time zone barriers, you need a close coordination, and that's what we are here for. So you have a kind of a bridge between Europe, Latin America, and also the US and Latin America when it comes to us, and also the partnership with CNT. What we do mostly are SAP rollouts. We do the complete rollouts, and of course, the main part, that's where we always come into play, is the localization, as I mentioned. And in Brazil, it's very complex, so we can help our customers navigate that and keep you up to speed. And of course, the tax reform is one of the main drivers right now, where we get a lot of inquiries and questions about, and that's what we thought would be best to highlight today in the webinar. And we will come to Andre right away. So just to give you an overview where we are headquartered, we are headquartered in Munich, and we have the offices in Sao Paulo, Argentina, Buenos Aires, and Mexico City in Mexico to help really deliver those projects on site. So here's the contacts. We of course will share everything in the at the end, and this is also recorded, of course. So in Germany, Alex is responsible. Brazil is headed by Patrick, and in Mexico, it's Pablo. So yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you very much, and yeah, I hope everything is working now, and Andre can take over.
Yeah. And before
Okay.
Andre, you take over, I forgot to mention one thing. We have an interactive question and answer session at the end. So
Mhm.
if you have any questions, you can type it into the question features in your GoToWebinar, and we collect all the questions, and then we are all addressing them at the end of the presentation. I forgot to mention that. And Andre, it's all yours. And
Yeah,
thank you,
Okay.
Stefan.
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thanks.
So let me just share my screen here. Yeah. Well, first, welcome everyone. Uh, we had the idea to make this webinar based on the contact that we have with your companies, I mean, global companies that have operations here in Brazil. And we always had to explain, well, in a high level, what is the tax reform? What is the impact on SAP? What do you have to do to be compliant? So we thought that it would be a good idea to have this webinar and try to create a common basis for everyone. And I hope you like it. I hope you think that we gave you some valuable information by the end of the day, and that you will be willing to working with us later. So, being very quick, I try to summarize what are the main impacts, the main concepts of the tax reform in these three areas. So, the first thing that everyone is talking about, we have three new taxes. Two of them are the most important, CBS and IBS. Those taxes use the concept of value-added taxes. uh, they are going to be more or less standardized in all tax jurisdiction at the federal level, at state level, and at the city level. And they will all be based on the destination of the goods and services. And all this is a huge simplification on how to calculate tax on each transaction. So that image that Stefan showed, well, this we hope that this is going to shrink a lot when this transition is done. And with these concepts of VAT taxes and create a kind of standard in all levels, uh, this will make our tax system much easier to follow, and so on. There are other changes that are very relevant. One of them is related to when you are able to recognize your tax credits. So today, when you issue a nota fiscal document, when you issue an invoice, you automatically can recognize your tax credit. This is going to change. This is going to be allowed only when the uh, tax related to that transaction is settled. So usually when your customer pays your invoice, that's when this taxes is settled. So that will be the moment where you will be able to consider the credits related to this transaction. And so this will impact the way you need to post your documents into account, and some maybe some cash flow impacts that we will discuss a little bit later. One thing that the government released one information that the government released a couple of weeks ago is that they are going to create a tax engine that you will be able to download and use it to either check your documents if you are calculating correct the taxes, or you can even uh, uh, use this government tax engine in your ERP system to calculate your taxes. This is very new. We don't have all the details on how this is going to work. This is still under development, but it's something that the government is already saying, well, this tax engine is the one that we are going to use internally to check your documents, and we want you to have copy of that. We're going to keep this tax engine updated, and you should only make sure that you download always the latest version and keep using it. You will probably have no issues in the values you are calculating for CBS and IBS. Okay, and when we put those new taxes in place, I mean, when we complete the transition phase, the old taxes will be gone. So we won't need anymore the PIS/COFINS, ICMS, ISS, and IPI the way it is today. Okay, IPI will be changed for uh, uh, a kind of surcharge for products that have a similar produced in the Manaus Free Trade Zone, but IPI as it is today that has a large number of products that uh, are receive some IPI charge. Well, this is not going to be when we complete the transition. The second concept that we have is the concept of the government assisted tax reporting. So the idea is that every transaction, everything that is relevant for CBS and IBS will have an electronic document, and the government will receive those electronic documents and create a database with all these operations. This database, they estimate that every year they will receive about 80 billion transactions. So it's going to be a huge database. And instead of you creating your reports, today you create your SPADI files and many other reports. You won't need to create any report. All you have to do is to issue all the electronic documents, and the government will create this database in a web portal where you can access the information in this database to check what is your what are the credits and debits that you have, and what is the balance for your CBS and IBS, and issue the documents to pay the correct taxes there. So very important, the tax credits and debits will be tracked at the document level. So every time you have one document, you will be able to trace when the debit of that tax was settled, and what are the credits that what are the use of the credits of the generated by that transaction. This is very detailed. Today we do it on a monthly basis. You add all your credits, add all your debits, and work what's your balance on a monthly basis. This in the new system will be done document by document. Those reports will be at company level. No need to do it for each branch. So if you have many branches, this will reduce a lot of your work. And as I mentioned, uh, the tax amount that you have to pay, the relevant information is what you have in the government database. It's not what you calculate in your system and then report to the government. So this is a change in the concept. And what you might do is create a kind of reconciliation between what the government has and what your system have, but the source of truth will always be the government database. Okay, so the third concept is the concept of split payment. And this is the idea that every time you pay an invoice, the part of the value that you are paying that is related to taxes will go directly to a government account. So your vendor will receive only the net value. Okay, so this will require a lot of changes in the bank system and the way we transact those payments. And this might cause some impacts in companies' cash flow. I mean, you will not receive that 26, 28% of taxes anymore, and have a couple of weeks to work with that money. That money will go directly to the government, and this will create new events for each nota fiscal document. You will have not only if the document was issued, if it was canceled or not, but you will also have to inform when it was paid, if it was paid at once, if it was paid with installments, and so on. So all this will create new events that will go into this government database. This is the general idea. I mean, the main concepts in the tax reform, and I think I tried to explain a little bit on the impacts on the day-to-day operation, how this is going to be implemented. So there is a transition period, and this is going to take place from in 5 phases. That's how we see it. The first phase is something that started a couple of years ago, and we now have the legal framework for that. In fact, it's mostly the legal framework at federal level, and we are seeing the CBS regulations and technical requirements regulation definitions now, and we will have the next phase from 2026 on, and this will be the implementation of the technical framework to support the new taxes. I mean, the new taxes are all based on electronic documents, much more intense than what we have today. And so the requirements for this new technical framework is what we are seeing that the government is creating now, and the implementation of this uh, will start in 2026 and will go on during this transition phase. Okay, the way this is going to happen, well, the first, let's say, deliverable of this technical framework is the update on the nota fiscal documents. We will have to add information on CBS and IBS as statistical values from during the year of 2026. I will go into more detail on this in the following slides. Okay. So the third phase of this transition, we will have CBS tax as an effective tax, not as a statistical value anymore. So the federal government will start to collect CBS, and will not work anymore with PIS and COFINS. IBS is later, so at this moment IBS is still statistical, and the idea is to implement the split payment in 2027. There has been a lot of discussion with banks. We are still not sure if they will be ready for all payment methods in January 2027, but uh, this is still to be seen where we're going to be with the split payment in 2027. In parallel, we will have the refinement, the definitions regarding the state and municipal legislation and regulations to implement IBS from January 2029. So from January 2029 to 2032, we will phase out ICMS and ISS, and we will phase in IBS. So this transition uh, uh, the idea is that this will allow the cities and states to adjust to this change. The impact in their budget is very big, so they are trying to give time for all government entities to adjust to this new tax system. And then from 2033 on, we will be only on the new tax system. Well, some takeaways from this transition. First is that we will have both tax systems working in parallel for 7 years. So during this period, in fact, the tax scenario in Brazil will be more complex than it is today. Okay, the good thing is that in the end we will keep just the simpler scenario, but the reality is that from 2026 to 2032, we will have both to comply with the requirements of both systems, and this will require a lot of work. Okay. The second thing is that there is a lot of things that needs to be regulated and defined and so on yet. So not everything is clear. Uh, we have elections in this period, so there might be some political impacts in this transition period. But what we can see is that the Brazilian society is very, I mean, we are willing to make this change. Honestly, I think everyone is tired of the complexity that we have today. We want to go to something simpler. And this transition period, it shows us that we have three main dates in this transition. One is January 2026. One is January 2027, and one is January 2029. What will happen in 27 and 29, it's not fully defined yet. So let's focus on what we have very close with January 2026. Let's see what we need for that. And after a lot of discussion, I mean, in April, we received some technical notes about the requirements in electronic documents. And what it says is that from January 2026, we will be required to have statistical information on CBS, IBS, and IS in all electronic documents, in all nota fiscal documents. What does it mean to be statistical? Is that we're going to have to calculate the tax value with a test tax rate of 1%, and we'll have to add to put this information in the nota fiscal document, but it should not impact the document value. So although we are declaring this new tax, we won't we won't add the value of these new taxes in the value of the nota fiscal. As a consequence, what everyone has agreed is that there is no requirement to post this statistical value in your accounting books. So the only thing you need is to put this information in your XML file. Yeah, but this is not as simple as it might seem. I mean, the new fields in the XML file, we have more than 100 new fields there to comply, to report CBS, IBS, and IS. So it's not as simple as you might imagine, but it's much simpler than when we start the actual to work with effective CBS as a tax. Okay, so this will be mandatory in every electronic document that you have. So every nota fiscal that you issue must have information on CBS and IBS. Why is that? Because even if the transaction, if there's no tax due in that transaction, you need to inform that this transaction is exempt of tax. So when we make this adjustment, we must make sure that every single nota fiscal that you are issuing has the information on CBS and IBS. Okay, and what the government will do with all those documents and all this information is test their framework. I mean, we are testing if we are able to create the documents with the new information. The government will be receiving that and will be testing if their portal, if their database is processing all those documents correctly. Okay, so that's the idea for 2026. Okay, now let's go a little bit on how SAP is working with that. So the first thing that SAP has done is to publish what are the support package levels that they are going to support for this change. I mean, the versions that they are supporting is, you have to be very, very out of date not to be supported. Okay, so you can check the OSS note that I'm mentioning here, but in general, they are supporting, I think, most of the vast majority of installations that we see there. The other thing that SAP said is that GRC will not be supported with the tax reform. And SAP had already said that they were going to discontinue GRC and FE support in December 2025. And so they decided they're not going to do the tax reform there. And so if you do use GRC as your messaging system for NFE, you will have to change for a new solution. Okay. So this is very important. I mean, we are already in August basically, and you don't have that much time to make this change. Okay. The other thing that SAP have already said is that they are not going to update the integration with third-party systems. For January 2026, I don't see this as such a big issue. I mean, the requirements are not that complex, and you are able to use the current the current integration to and add the required information to do that. But you should look with your third-party messaging system provider how they're going to work with the split payment and with the new events and so on, because SAP is not going to provide any help on that. Okay, so they will need to figure out how to work with those new events, with those new information. Okay. One other thing that SAP has decided is that they are not going to update J1B tax with the new taxes. We'll have to update the tax rates and so on using standard condition transactions, VK11, FV11. And for 2026, I don't see this as a big issue. As I mentioned, we will have just one fixed tax rate for every situation where tax apply. Later, where in 2027, let's see how SAP will work with that. They have not released the solution for 2027 yet. And we have recently heard of this tax engine that the government is releasing. So we don't know yet how this is going to work after 2027. For 2026, what we will have to do, we will have to work with this. Okay. So the next thing that I have is that SAP is not releasing, well, a huge package, everything at once that solves all the issues in the tax reform. No, they're going to do it gradually. They've been releasing OSS notes since March this year. And the last count I did, we had 24 OSS notes already released. Some of them are already in version 3, 4. And they already said that they're going to release the changes, the updates, according to the tax reform timeline. And so today we are focusing on what is required for January 2026, and we are seeing OSS notes related to January 2026, and I think this is good. Okay, so you don't create impacts on things that will be required later before you need it. Okay. Uh, Last thing that I want to mention, SAP has been very open in communication. I mean, there are lots of channels where they are publish things about the tax reform. The regulatory change manager is one of them. Some OSS nodes are being updated with the information on what's going on. I've mentioned this tax reform leading OSS nodes. It's a good way to follow all the changes that are being released. SAP has created a work zone where you can follow the issues that we are having while installing the OSS nodes, what kind of solutions, and previews on what is to come. So it's a good source of information. SAP Help is being updated with the change, so on the tax reform. And also the SAP User Association, Azugi, uh, also have monthly meetings with SAP, and we get a lot of information on those meetings on what's going on, what are the next steps, and how things are going to work. So, in general, for how SAP is handling, I think this covers the general idea on how SAP is working. But what is the actual impact so far? So for January 2026, we already know that we will have to update every pricing procedure that you have for Brazil. We'll have to add those some new conditions for those new taxes, CBS and IBS. And we will also have to update things in every document type that works with Nota Fiscal in Brazil. There is a new tax classification. This is a new field in the sales order item that we will have to work with this new field in every document that we create. We will also have to update the Brazilian tax procedure and all the related tax codes that you have in purchase order and using purchase order or any document that requires a nota fiscal to be issued. And because we've changed the pricing procedure and the tax procedure, we'll have also to update the mapping of those pricing procedures and tax procedures to the nota fiscal fields. Okay, I'll show a little bit more of detail of this later, but for those of you that are used to that, this is a complex map. We'll have to add new conditions in this mapping. The last thing that we have to update so far is the messaging system. If you are using SAP DRC, this is part of the package that SAP is releasing. If you use a third-party messaging system, then you will need to contact your third-party messaging system and work with them how they are going to update this mapping from the SAP Nota Fiscal document to the XML that is going to be approved. Okay. One disclaimer here: while SAP has not completed released all the OSS nodes that are required, so there might be additional impacts. So don't consider if you are looking at this moment, this is not the complete picture. There may be additional change that you require to do in the future. Okay, let's take a look on how this is coming up in SAP. So the first thing that you're seeing here is that SAP created this table with the new tax classification that is required for all transactions. So this table comes empty, okay? So the values that you're seeing here, we created for our tests in our sandbox system here. but you will need to create this and inform for each scenario what is the uh, tax situation and tax classification for IBS and CBS. This is very similar to ICMS IPI tax laws. Okay, and from this table, based on the order type and item category, uh, you can determine what is the relevant tax situation for each order item. And this is works with the table J1B SGCAD. For those who are familiar with SD, they will understand what I'm talking about. But this rule is probably not enough. And we know that SAP is evaluating on alternatives to add functionality on how to determine this. Maybe some additional table, maybe some BAPI to uh, allow us to develop some rule to define what is the correct tax situation that apply in each transaction. Okay, on top of that, in the SD documents, as I mentioned, we will have to update the pricing procedure and we will add 3 new conditions with the new taxes there. Okay, so those values are just statistical. So if you look here, the values are in black, meaning that they are statistical values, they are not actual values. And from this pricing procedure conditions, we will map into the nota fiscal values. So if you go into the item of your nota fiscal, you will see the values for CBS and IBS there. Okay, those values are set as statistical values in your nota fiscal, so they will not add into the nota fiscal total. Okay, so this is in general how this is going to work for January 2026. Okay, so add this new tax classification, add the new conditions in the pricing procedure, and with the mapping from the pricing procedure to the nota fiscal document, we will have this information in your nota fiscal document. Okay, so in purchasing is very similar. So once you've updated your tax codes, your tax procedure and your tax codes, you will see new conditions in your purchase order with the tax rates and tax values for CBS and IBS. And based on the condition mapping, those values will be updated in the nota fiscal when you post the invoice verification. Okay, so when you post an invoice using Miro, these lines will be added to your nota fiscal document. Again, they are just statistical. They are not having any effect in the total of your nota fiscal document. Okay, so this is the basic idea on what is going to be the impact in the SAP system. Of course, the main requirement that you need to comply is not in your SAP system, it's in your XML file. So all of this must be reflected in your messaging system. Okay, so how should we prepare for January 2026? How does a project looks like? First thing I'd like to say, well, let's start this project end of August, September at most. We estimate that this project is going to take between 12 to 16 weeks. This depends a lot on the complexity of your operation. This depends on whether you have to change your messaging system or not. So that's why we think that if you start later than September, it's going to be very hard. You won't have enough time to make the change, make good tests, and be confident that you can go live without any issues. Another thing to consider is that, as I mentioned, SAP is still going to release some new OSS nodes. Most of them are planned for August. So that's why we've been discussing with our customers that we should kick off this project at the end of August, beginning of September at most. So, well, in order to do this project, get your tax department involved. They are critical. We will have to do this new tax classification. I mean, we are IT people, and we need the tax people to help us, making sure that we are setting the system correctly and that the tests that we are doing are reflecting what really needs to be done. Although the main requirement at this phase is a technical one. I mean, we need to add the information in the XML file. That's the requirement. We need to make sure that the information is correct in terms of the tax relevance of that information. Okay. This impact, this the requirements for January 2026, they will impact every business scenario that has a nota fiscal. So you need to reevaluate all your business scenarios and check what is the impact in each one of them, what is the tax classification, and how you should calculate tax in every one of them. And also, since this in SAP, this is changing SD documents, check your custom developments, anything that has been developed and that access SD document tables. You should check and make sure that there is no relevant impact in your custom development. Your test plan should consider every single scenario that you issue or receive a nota fiscal. And if you every scenario that you issue a nota fiscal, and you issue nota fiscal to customers, but remember that you have your transfer between plants, you issue returns to vendors, things like that. Every one of those scenarios must be retested and make sure that you have the required information there. Consulting services are in high demand here in Brazil now. I mean, every single company in the country has to do it. So if you need consulting services to make this project work, try to contact them as soon as you can and make sure that you get the right partner to do the job with you. Okay. And critical to know what is the situation of your NFE messaging system. So contact your provider and make sure that they are working, and get to know when they will have the system ready for you to start testing and approving documents in the government test system, and make sure that you are providing the correct information in your nota fiscal documents. Okay, so this is a general idea on how to set this project and how to move on. Okay, so but what will happen after? How after January 2026? Well, the first thing is that we will have one change that must go live in July 2026. So it's a much simpler change. So get ready for this. Uh, the government has not defined what's going to be the CBS tax rate, and there are some additional rules that needs to be defined. We're waiting for this. There will be new NFE events, and we will have the implementation of the split payment. Okay. Last main thing on the government side is that they will release access to this portal, and we'll have to test and make sure that you know how this portal works, because this will be your tax reporting tool from 2027 on. And of course, all of this will bring impacts into your SAP system for January 2027. The impacts are probably going to be much higher than what we see for January 2026. So prepare your budget, make sure that you have the right people, and plan for more than 3 or 4 months to prepare for January 2027. This is going to be much harder than what we have now for January 2026. Well, with that, I complete my overview of the tax reform and impacts in SAP. And Bern, I think we have some Q&A, and I will give it back to you so we can move on to that Q&A session.
Fantastic. And Andre, I have a couple of takeaways. So first of all, this was probably the best summary of the tax reform of in Brazil I ever heard. I don't think it has been could have been done any better, any cleaner, and any more straightforward in 40 minutes. So this is amazing. And the second takeaway, when I heard about the tax reform in Brazil, I had a feeling, and you confirmed it, that before it gets simpler, it gets more complicated. That makes me a little bit nervous. So, but it's great. We have 9 minutes I would like to use for Q&A, and we have a lot of questions. We have a lot of people on the call, and I have a lot of questions. Before we get to the questions, and feel free to type in more, we try to address as many as possible. But Andre mentioned the changes kicking in 2026. And so if you look at the timeline, there are some changes you have to make in January 2026, some more in July, some more in 2027, and then phase 4 in 2029. But if you want to work with us, we kind of put out a timeline. If you want to work with our team, with Alex, welcome, fashionably late, and Andre and our team, we recommend to contact us as soon as possible because the consultants are in high demand. It's not that complicated, but you really have to know what you are doing. So, and we have a process that once you contact us, we have a discovery call, we request some information about your environment, and then we can put a quote together, and then we can start as soon as possible because we have 3 more months before the year end, and we can make time of that we can make the necessary changes for 2026. So with that, I would like to open the Q&A session. And Alex, maybe I give you the floor very quick to introduce yourself because you couldn't do it earlier, and a lot of the attendees will hear Alexander's voice. So I want to give you the chance to
That's fine. Thanks a lot. Just very quick. So taxes can be a challenge in Brazil, and in Germany, public transportation can be. So, but I'm very happy that I could join now, and I'm responsible for the business development. I'm also happy, even after the webinar, if you have any questions, you can directly contact me or my colleagues with any questions with regards to the tax reform, or to our services in general in Latin America. So.
Good.
Now, I think we go directly to the questions.
Good. And the first question, and I'm probably going to butcher the word, but the question, Andre, is of course for you. The question is about the substitución de tributaria, if that one becomes obsolete or not obsolete, because that wasn't mentioned. I don't know if you know what's going to happen with that.
Yes and no. I mean, substituição tributária is a kind of ICMS. So once we have IBS in full in 2033, substituição tributária will be gone.
Okay. The next question, the importance of reviewing the database, tax materials, customer, supplier for successful adoption of the tax reform. I guess the question if we have to update any master data, that's if I read that correct.
Well, if you look at what SAP has released so far, there is no requirement in master data. But when you, from the discussions that we've had, we know that in order to make the correct definition of the tax classification, you need to look at customers, material, and well, in purchasing documents at vendors. So we believe that when SAP releases additional functionality related to the new tax classification, there will be things in the customer master, in the material master. If not, you will have to probably develop something that looks at the customer master, material master to define the correct tax classification.
Okay. The next question I think was more about the slide, and I think we take this offline, but I read it out and maybe I missed something, but there's a slide that references regulatory change manager, OSS notes, sub work zone. I don't know if we had a wrong reference in the OSS notes, but I guess we take this offline unless Andre, it rings a bell. What that could be? Otherwise, we take
Yeah,
it offline.
I mean, those are, let's say, communication channels or support channels from SAP. I mean, when we send the presentation, we may send a link to those websites, and I think you will be able to follow this.
Awesome. Next question regarding the SD and MM pricing procedure. Can we continue using the current SD pricing, or is it necessary to create new ones provided by the SAP notes?
No, you don't need to create new ones, but you will need to add these new conditions to all your pricing procedures. And remember, and one thing important is that when you add those new conditions in the transition, I mean, in January 1st, 2026, you have to recalculate prices for every open order that you have to add this new condition, and they will be statistical. And in January 2027, you will have to change your pricing procedure again because the values won't be statistical anymore. They will be actual values. So this is going to be 2 years in a row where you will have to update all your pricing procedures.
Good or not good? The what is about the XML layout on October 2025? And I wonder why October. Maybe you know why he asks
Yeah,
October and not the January.
yeah. This is one information that I've omitted here in the presentation. So in fact, the new layout will be available in the Cephas production system from October. So if you get ready before January, you can go live in October, November, or December. Okay. The main thing here, it's not going to be mandatory on October. If you keep the old layout until December, it's going to be okay.
Okay. So, and then there was one question that came in before the webinar, and I think you answered that, but maybe if you want to add
Mhm.
something, how the tax reform is going to impact the reception process of e-invoices from January 2026 for inbound processes. Will it be mandatory to register IBS, CBS in the accounting and tax books? Could you explain about debit and credit notes? Maybe the last question,
So,
the last sentence, maybe you can expand on that.
yeah, well, let me first answer the first one. What is the impact in the inbound in the when you post your vendor nota fiscal documents? So first, let's talk about the legal requirements on that. So since you don't have to create any reports based on your vendor documents, in fact, you are not required to do anything. But remember, you want to be able to reconcile the information that you have in your SAP system with the government website. You will be required at some moment to issue a return to your vendor that must reflect the information that you've received. So, although it's not mandatory from the legal perspective to post this information in your system, I would follow what SAP is doing and replicating this information in your inbound process also. Okay. Regarding credit and debit notes, we've seen the changes in the layout of the Nota Fiscal that will allow us to issue credit and debit notes, but there's still regulations to be defined in order for us to understand when exactly you can issue those documents. SAP has not issued anything on this regard. So honestly, the only thing I know is that the idea is if you find any differences, any adjustments that you need to do in the government database on your tax credits and debits, you will be able to do it using new documents that are credit and debit memos. But there is still a lot of regulation that needs to be done before we are able to go into more details.
Awesome. And then I want to have one more question I can address myself. If we can get a copy of the presentation and a recording of the webinar. Answer is yes, it's going to come either later today or first thing tomorrow morning. And we have 3 more questions and we are out of time. So we take those questions online. But I want to just remind you that either Alexander or I gonna do a quick courtesy follow up if we can help you in any way. And with that, I want to thank specifically Andre. That was amazing. I know you put a lot of work into
Thank you.
preparing, put a lot of hours into this. This was really, really good. And I thank all the audiences for staying until the end. There was like hardly anybody leaving early, so we appreciate that. With that, thanks Andre, thanks Alexander, and thanks Stefan. And I hope to talk to you all again and have a great afternoon and a great day. Thank you.
See you.
Bye bye.
Bye.